what if questions, I wonder questions. You know, keep them open and ask less of these one answer. Did you do your homework? Have you taken your bath yet? All right. Research also shows that in families that are not in poverty, we have more time for these kind of questions. Sad but true. All right, and by the way, just for those of you who are geeks like me, this kind of thinking, open-ended, is called divergent thinking. This kind of thinking is called convergent thinking. So more divergent, less convergent. All right, so why don't teachers do this differentiation thing that we were talking about? Here's what they say. I have a chopped up schedule. We go to music, we're back for a half hour, then we go to art, and then some kids go out for speech and other kids come in. I get that. I've been a classroom teacher almost half of my career. That is a problem, but it's not an insurmountable problem. Some of them say, the day is too short, I have too much curriculum. I get that. We have more curriculum than ever now. I've been teaching 42 years, and honestly, my first year teaching, we had one faculty meeting. That was amazing. I don't know how they did that, but school is still ran without 72 meetings a week. So, but teachers are under a lot of time constraints. Time is their biggest enemy. Teachers often look at me and say, great idea, but hey, the clock and I are not friends. Class size, we talked about that earlier. Class sizes are creeping. Sometimes we just don't have the right materials. Now, this is not quite the excuse that it used to be because of the internet, all right? It used to be if you didn't have text on multiple levels, you were kind of stuck. But now we can get materials pretty easily off the internet for kids at various levels. So it takes a teacher who's willing to do some prospecting, looking for this kind of stuff. Sometimes differentiation is hampered by report cards and assessments. And there's a certain amount of things we have to get done, and our report cards dictate what we have to teach for kids. And sometimes teachers say, gotta teach to the test, gotta teach to the test, gotta teach to the test. Okay? That's a whole other topic. I'm not going to go there tonight. But I really believe that as a nation, we need to think more about creativity and innovation. I believe that's going to be the currency of the future, not standardization of us. Okay, so you're looking at your child's classroom and you say, is she or he differentiating from my child? How can I tell? Here's some things you might see. You might see some recorded text so that kids can work at their own level or at a supported level. You might see some struggling learners with supports. You might see your gifted child extended by text that might be a little beyond their reach, but supported by maybe headphones. You might see reading buddies. How many of you know what reading buddies are? Okay, that's where your child's paired up with another child. Your child might be the little kid in the pair or the big kid in the pair. That stretches our kids in a lot of ways. When they're the little kids, they get to stretch up. When they're the big kids, they get to do some teaching and modeling. A give it back kind of model, if you will. You should see multiple text on multiple levels. You should see your teachers working with small groups for direct instruction. And they shouldn't all be doing the same thing. There might be multiple groups going on in the room, one at a time, while other groups are doing other things. You might see some individualized instruction. Right? My friend Sarah is a 5th and 6th grade teacher, regular classroom teacher out in Merton. And she has a lot of ongoing projects. She has what's called Friday Project Day. And on Friday afternoons, all of her kids who are caught up with the majority of their work get to work on a project of their choice over time. Now, her gifted kids, can you imagine that they buy extra time during the week to work on their project? They do. And so they get some time to have some individualized time with her to plan their project and to plan the next step. But they also get some extra time to work on it during the week. You should see some whole group instruction, but it should not be all the time. I like to think of whole group instruction as when you're starting something and when you're crystallizing something along the way. Think of like, the mouse going through the boa constrictor. We're all together, we're all apart. We're all together, we're all apart. Some of you are getting a visual, I can tell. You're laughing. But that's the way a good classroom looks like. Sometimes we're together, sometimes we're working in groups, sometimes I'm working with one or two of you. Graphic organizers to support the learning, interest-based mini lessons, and compacting, which we talked about, and multi-level computer programs. Now, the process, how kids learn, is differentiated. You might see some activity boards and some choice. Tic-tac-toe is basically that, a grid, usually a 3x3, and it's got like 9 different choices on it. Sometimes the very middle square is left open as free choice where a kid can design an activity, but the child picks a tic-tac-toe of activities to do. And these are sometimes teacher designed, sometimes kid designed. I teach teachers how to do these kinds of things. Journal prompts. We have kids writing a lot, as well we should. But the prompts shouldn't always be the same for every kid. There should always be a chance for some open-endedness, because a lot of creative kids have their own ideas of what they want to do. Tiered activities, talked about that earlier. Built-in opportunities for kids to kick up the learning. So I've got a learning center over here. I've got things that all kids can do, but then I've got that next level of challenge for some kids. So I have to know what that next level of challenge is. Groupie kids, students giving us ideas as teachers. Lots of times my teachers will say to me, I don't know what to do with that child. My next question will be, well, have you asked? Because kids often trump us with their ideas. They have some really good ideas. They may not know how to do something. That's our job, to help them know how, but they know what they want to do. And then you should be able to see kids learning in a variety of ways. All right. You should also see lots of active learning, which, by the way, is noisy, and that's okay, as long as it's learning centered. Now, kids should be able to show us in a classroom that they've learned in a number of different ways. This one's really important, and we're getting there in education. We shouldn't be assessing kids, giving them grades along the way. Remember when you all learned to drive? What if the officer was sitting in the car grading you while you were learning to parallel park? Would that be fair? That's not fair, right? It's at the end when you show summatively that you have learned to parallel park that should count. And then, by the way, if you make mistakes along the way, it's okay as long as you're moving along that learning continuum. Teachers are more of a coach, and teachers need to understand this. And this is a big shift for some people in education. I had this aha about 20 years ago. It's like, changed my teaching. We all have standards we have to meet in education. We used to put like standards, and then we teach, and then we test. We put the assessment at the end. Really, what we need to do is say to kids, here's what you need to know. Here's how I'm going to measure it. Here's your target. Now let me teach you so you know what that target is. It makes a big difference. It's like kind of flipping it on end. Okay, so what does it feel like? You're the coach as a teacher. Any teachers in this room? Okay. Big difference, right, between being the sage on the stage and the guide on the side. All right? You know your students really, really well. And this is much easier, I will admit, much easier to do at the elementary level than it is at the middle school and high school. Because at the elementary level, we've got our 25, 30 kids every day, most of the day, all the time. And middle school or high school, they may see 100, 125, 150 kids for either a block or a period during the day. So they have many more kids and much less time. So, but nonetheless, there are lots of ways to get to know kids. And good teachers really want to know kids. They want to kind of know what makes them tick. Everybody's respected and respectful. And everybody wants to come to school, and that is the teacher too. You know, lots of times when teachers start differentiating, they all of a sudden get a new joy for teaching, because it's sort of like in the Mickey Mouse show, anything can happen day. You know, there's a lot of things that you plan in a classroom, but then there's that kind of joyful anticipation of serendipity. What's going to happen in my classroom today? Okay, we talked about level 1. Now we're at level 2. We're in the middle. And here are